We welcome you into Game Day Scoreboard. Kiana Martin here, kicking off your Tuesday slate. The second annual NBA in-season tournament championship getting set to tip off tonight. Bowl season underway in the world of college football, but we stick with the gridiron and head to the NFL as the injuries are mounting up and the playoff race getting tighter. Sometimes maybe you just need to sleep it off. Well, whatever the case was, Patrick Mahomes was back on the practice field as a full participant a mere 48 hours after the quarterback was injured during the team's 21-7 win over the Cleveland Browns on Sunday. On Monday, he was diagnosed with a mild high ankle sprain. Mahomes and the Chiefs are in the midst of a quick turnaround with the matchup on Saturday against the Houston Texans. His status for the AFC showdown still to be determined.
So we put ourselves in good position to where I guess I wouldn't say it was dire that I play. I mean, it's something where it's not like in the AFC Championship game where we're playing to get to the Super Bowls. I mean, we have a little bit of room to kind of spare, but at the end of the day, we're trying to win. We're trying to win the football game, and I'm a competitor. I want to go out there and play. So I'll push myself to get to the best place possible over these next few days, and we'll be able to make a decision then.
And we are now joined by CBS Sports NFL analyst John Breech. And John, I'll have whatever he's having. I'm talking about Patrick Mahomes because, listen, I can literally stub my toe and I'm out for the entire season. He suffers a mild high ankle sprain and he's back on the practice field literally 2 days later. But although Tuesday's session was a light practice, that's encouraging nonetheless. Mahomes listed as a full participant, but looking big picture here, Chiefs are in the midst of playing 3 games in a span of 10 days. They're trying to clinch that #1 overall seed in the AFC, but also you don't want a hobbled Mahomes heading into the postseason. So, Breech, how do you think KC should play things here?
Well, I think Mahomes was very smart with his comments there. He seemed to allude or kind of hint at, hey, look, I might not play. I want to be out there, but there's no guarantee. And I think what you just mentioned, Kiana, is something that the Chiefs absolutely have to factor into this, is that they do have 3 games in 10 days. If Mahomes plays Saturday and aggravates the ankle injury, we have to turn around and play 4 days later against the Pittsburgh Steelers on Christmas. So that's something you absolutely have to factor in when you're making this decision. So I think that's what the Chiefs are going to do. As you mentioned, it was a light practice Tuesday, so it's not like Mahomes really tested the ankle. When they have more thorough practice, fully padded practice, Mahomes will be able to test the ankle and get a better idea of whether he can play Saturday. I think the other thing is that Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes both sounded pretty confident that Carson Wentz can run this offense if he has to do that. So I think that no matter what Kansas City does, they will feel very good about their chances of winning on Saturday. But I will say, if it was my decision, I had to make it today, I'd probably rest Mahomes on Saturday, get him ready for the Christmas game, getting ready for the season finale, because you have to make sure you get that first round bye in the playoffs so he can rest his ankle.
That's why you can't put a price on having a serviceable backup, having a guy like Carson Wentz, who has been a proven quarterback in the past, but just looking at the standings in the AFC, Chiefs currently with a 2-game lead over those Bills. We know how that game went back in Week 11, though, so who has the tiebreaker there? But meanwhile, I believed, Breech, that Monday night was going to be the reemergence of Kirk Cousins after his less-than-ideal string of outings for the Falcons. And while Atlanta snapped their 4-game win streak, or losing streak, and Cousins did find the end zone for the first time since November 3rd, he still had a lackluster day stat-wise, just 112 yards and a touchdown against a battered and bruised Raiders team. Now, head coach Raheem Morris, who's been backing Cousins down during his stretch, not making any decisions for a change just yet. Here's what he had to say.
He's got to play better. And, obviously you got to go back, you got to be able to look at everything. But, he wants to play better. He's got to play better. We got to find a way to get him to play better.
If he can't, are you prepared to replace him with Michael Penix?
We got everybody in our roster for a reason, right? We got so much to get better at, and those things will always be discussed. That's just the nature of the beast in football. It's just so heavily talked about at the quarterback position because there's only one guy out there. So for us, man, our mentality is to find a way to win the next game. That's just the mentality that we're going to have.
So, Breech, if you're Raheem Morris, you still got a shot at the postseason, although you're going to need some help from the Bucs. But just how do you handle this quarterback situation, just considering where we are right now in the season?
Well, Kiana, for me, this is fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 5 times, I'm benching you. That's where this gets. And I think Raheem Morris even kind of alluded that he is getting to that. He is ready. He's thinking about it. You look at what he said there, that our quarterback has to play better. We have to get him to play better. But what have they been doing for the past 5 weeks? I'm assuming they've been trying to get Kirk Cousins to play better. And you look at this 5-game span where they have gone 1-4. The offense is only averaging 14.4 points per game. Kirk Cousins has thrown 9 interceptions. He has no zip on the football. His accuracy has gone down. His mobility just isn't there. He's a sitting duck whenever the pass rush gets through the Falcons' offensive line. At this point, I don't see how Michael Penix could be any worse. So I think that you have to give some serious thought to playing Penix. I wouldn't be surprised if he sees the field against the Giants. But if you are starting Cousins on Sunday against New York, I think you have to have him on a really short leash. And worst case scenario, if they lose, you just plan to start Michael Penix the final 2 games. But I think you have to give serious thought to playing the rookie quarterback.
Fool me 5 times, we got a problem, Breech. But it's certainly worth at least, considering how this week goes, getting Penix at least some reps in the situation. But look, fortunately, quarterback not quite the issue for the Detroit Lions, but it feels like every other position is the problem. The Lions suffering yet another blow on Sunday, losing running back David Montgomery for the year with a knee injury. Detroit now has 21 players on injured reserve and still battling it out for that top spot in the division and the NFC. But here's what Dan Campbell had to say about their rough going in Week 15.
What happens is you get used to eating filet, and I'm talking to all of us, and well, everything's good, life's good, you know, but you forgot what it was like when you had nothing and you ate your molded bread, you know, and it was just fine, and it gave you everything you needed. And sometimes you got to get punched in the mouth and remember what it used to be like to really appreciate where you are. And we'll do that.
Breech, no one wants to go back to molded bread after, eating filet and eating lobster. But you got to think about it. The Vikings now nipping at Detroit's heels with 3 games to go. They're playing well, and Detroit steadily losing key contributors on both sides of the ball. But just what's your panic meter with the Lions' number of injuries heading down this stretch and even just looking ahead to the postseason?
Well, let me just say that I love Dan Campbell's food metaphors. He's talking about eating kneecaps when he got hired, and now we're talking about moldy bread. This is fantastic. This is why he's such a great coach. My panic meter is a 9 with the Detroit Lions. I mean, you mentioned all of the injuries. They're absolutely piling up, especially on the defensive side of the ball. We saw him lose another starter. Aleem McNeil is out. That means their top 2 sack guys, Aiden Hutchinson, Aleem McNeil, both gone. And so this eventually hurts you a lot. You can't keep losing defensive players and expect to be competitive on defense. And we've really seen that the past 3 weeks. It wasn't just this Bills game where they surrendered 48 points. So the week before, they gave up 31 to the Packers. The defense almost blew it in the second half against the Bears on Thanksgiving. So they're giving up an average of 33 points per game over the past 3 weeks. I don't think that is going to get much better. And the problem is that as good as the Lions offense is, when your defense is struggling like that, there's no margin for error. You can't turn the ball over. You have to have Jared Goff throwing 5 touchdowns. And even then, you still might lose like they did on Sunday against Buffalo. So this is absolutely concern level. I think the Lions are a team that needs the top seed in the NFC more than anyone so that they can get that bye, maybe get a couple of those starters back and get that week off. So the Lions really need to get it. But right now, there's no guarantee because they got the Eagles and Vikings breathing down their neck.
Gosh, so brutal when you bring it up. What, Jared Goff, 494 yards, 5 touchdowns, not a single pick. Nonetheless, all of that resulting in a loss. Definitely need more out of that next man up mentality when it comes from that defense. But let's talk from playoff bound to maybe draft bound. 2 teams making quarterback moves. Jameis Winston headed to the bench out in Cleveland in favor of Dorian Thompson-Robinson. And then in Tennessee, Will Levis headed to the sidelines as the keys of the offense now being handed to Mason Rudolph. But just want to get your take. Is this the best move for both of these clubs at this point?
I think with the Browns, this is the right move. You know what you have with Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston has been the same quarterback for 10 straight years. It is, you might get 4 touchdowns, you might get 4 interceptions, you might get both those in the same game. So I think the Browns know what they have, and now you bring in Dorian Thompson-Robinson. He's your second-year quarterback. You gave him a couple of starts in 2023. Why not let him finish up the season, see how well he's come along, and see what he can do, and see if he can beat up on a Bengals defense that has made stars out of quite a few quarterbacks this year. So if you are making your first start of the season, it is a good time to do it against the Bengals. And in Tennessee, it's a little bit different because the whole point of the season was the Titans were going to try and figure out if Will Levis was their franchise QB. Can he be their QB of the future? And based on the fact that he is being benched, I'm going to go ahead and assume that answer is no. I think Brian Callahan just kept getting frustrated with all the interceptions. We saw 3 against that bad Bengals defense on Sunday, and he's just seemed to throw at least one back-breaking interception per game this season. And ultimately, the Titans decided, hey, look, this is not the guy. We're going to move on to someone else. So I won't be surprised if Tennessee is in the QB market during the upcoming offseason.
Yeah, looking like Tennessee has already got their answer with their move they made this week. But meanwhile, you talk about you know what you get if you're Cleveland and you have Jameis. But hey, at least he's been entertaining. As always, John Breech, just as entertaining, if not more. We appreciate you stopping by. And it's a jam-packed Sunday slate for Week 16, including the Rams looking to stay on top of the NFC West, taking on the Jets. The Bills looking to stay within reach of that AFC title. Plenty of action. You can catch it on CBS or streaming on Paramount+.